celebrated our wedding anniversary for the 5th time, it was decided that we wouldn't have children. It meant that we wouldn't have to pay for those expensive Disney and superhero themed birthday parties. The beautiful decor of our house would be free of pencil drawings. Tiny footsteps wouldn't leave mud marks on our polished wooden floors, and dirty laundry would only mean lingerie. It did seem like the logical thing to do. Very reasonable. Besides, with my advertising career and Deepak's passion for travel, there was hardly any room left for a little soul. Little soul. That did sound endearing. It was never an easy decision, I must admit, not particularly for me. No matter how liberated I considered myself, the thought of never letting life grow inside of me, never breastfeeding those little pink lips while little hands clasped my forefinger, that wasn't the easiest of choices. I was going against the most natural phenomenon that has been prevailing since the inception of this earth. Procreating, reproducing, giving birth. Call it by any name, it was the same thing. I was unwilling to allow the continuation of life. How odd was that? Then there was the bigger question. What will people say? For starters, my mother acted like 200 volts of electricity had been passed through her. My father, who had supported almost every decision in my whole life, seemed disappointed by this one. And my in-laws' reaction could have easily qualified for an entire episode of Downton Abbey. The greatest empathy, however, flooded in from well-wishers, which included relatives and neighbors who have a hard time minding their own business. This meant that I have been receiving a lot of free advice from then on. Names of aphrodisiacal foods, fertility windows, ovulation cycles, and even sexual positions are whispered into my ears at every social gathering. 5 years and still no kids, madam? I was jolted back into the realm of cognizance by the cart driver's question. Huh? 5 years and still no kids, madam? There he goes. Another one. No, I replied curtly. Don't worry, madam, looked at me sympathetically. God has a good plan for everyone. On any other day, my whiplash of a response would have shut him up for good, but I saw utter sincerity in his eyes. He probably meant well. In his world, it was perhaps unfathomable for a woman to have the choice of not bearing her man a child. Yeah, well, I smiled back at him. The camel cart we rode wheeled through a deserted path in Pushkar. A prominent Hindu pilgrimage in Rajasthan, Pushkar came with its own set of instructions. Restrictions on alcohol consumption, non-vegetarianism, and public display of affection. The much-hyped tourist destination looked like a large plot of barren land to me. Nothingness filled my vision in every direction I looked. The ride was uncomfortable, with many bumps on the road, literally, and the midday sun made it worse. I perspired like a pig and was parched, having forgotten to carry my water bottle. I could see that a cart driver was carrying a water bottle but couldn't bring myself to ask him for a sip. Up ahead, another richly decorated camel cart approached us, and the driver halted our cart to let it pass. It had on it a group of fair-skinned tourists. Woo woo, amuse! He waved at them and shouted. Yeah! They waved back at him and cheered. Which language is that? I asked, amused at his fluency. It's French. Did you study French? I asked. He looked at me and laughed in derision. Where would I study French, madam? I left school by 5th grade. Then how did you? From the tourists, the local guides. Wow. So much for those expensive German classes I had paid for. He whipped the camel's buttock. The sound of the lash startled me. Hey, easy man. It's a live animal. Arre madam, it doesn't hurt. Look. Before I could say another word, he whipped his own leg, recreating the same horrific sound. It's just to scare the camel, madam, so that it moves. I nodded avidly, fearing that he might demonstrate the trick on me as well. Far across the distance, I could see gypsies in colorful turbans, singing and playing the Ravanhatta and Sarangi. I asked the driver to take us closer to them. Sure, madam, but don't pay them any attention. They will ask money just for looking at them, he warned. Also, don't take photos from near. They will ask money. Did you hear that, Deepak? I turned back to check if my husband was listening. He had been awfully quiet the whole time, winking into his beloved DSLR's viewfinder. Did you hear that, Deepak? I raised my voice. What? Deepak turned towards me. Don't take photos of those guys, I pointed at the gypsies. Why not? He looked confused. They will ask for money, sir, or send their children to chase you, those bastards. Deepak shrugged. I was annoyed, but in all honesty, I actually envied him. The man's ability to remain oblivious to the rest of the world was an attribute that I would have killed for. I used to be amazed by how easily he could shrug off those comments and discussions about us being a childless couple. I remember this time when we were at a family outing and the subject of babies came up. The world isn't a good place for children anymore, Deepak explained to our parents. We will be one of those couples who extend their affections to nieces and nephews. He laughed. It was evident from everyone's expression that they were not amused. Of course, they never considered him important. It was I who bore that brunt. There was hardly a soul in our families who would even care to know if I was capable of giving birth. I had hardened up, but it killed me to learn that the value of a woman was measured in terms of her ability to procreate, even amidst the so-called educated folks. The heat was excruciating. My throat was dry and my skin was burnt. The little beads of sweat trickling down my skin, though annoying, provided a little relief. As we neared the gypsies, they waved at us and started dancing with renewed energy. Well, for about 2 minutes. Deepak zoomed in his camera lens and captured a few photographs, provoking the gypsies to shout at us and ask for money. Our driver sped the cart away. What's so wrong about paying them a little money? Deepak asked. Just wait and watch, sir, the driver said. A minute later, a little boy of probably about 7 ran behind our cart. Sir, 50 rupees, he said. What do you need 50 rupees for? Deepak asked. Sir, 50 rupees, sir. No money for food, sir, he said. Come away with us. We will give you food and send you to school. Don't you want to go to school? The little boy shrugged, swore at Deepak and walked away. Did you see that, sir? This is what they teach their kids. I get your point. Deepak smiled and looked away. A child deprived of his childhood. A child who wouldn't face such hardships if he was never born. Was it poverty? Or was it something else? The expectation from a child to perform and deliver is the same in all strata of social demography. Here in Pushkar, I've witnessed a child being pushed to beg for money. In the world I lived, I witnessed children being pushed to beg for good grades in schools and admissions in expensive colleges. So how was it different? Or was it different at all? In a way, it's better that you don't have children yet, madam. Excuse me? I mean, at least the husband and the wife get to know each other a little before they raise a family. No? I guess. I mean, my friend got married 3 years back and has 3 children, and he is only 24. The poor chap is in tears every time I meet him. He laughed. He married early. Well, madam, here, boys get married almost the minute they turn 21. Keeps them off the bad stuff. He chuckled. What about you? I am only 20, madam. No girlfriends? He blushed. No, madam. Obama is all I have. Obama? Yes, madam. The camel you're riding is named after the President of America. He grinned. Is that so? My eyebrows rose. Yes, madam. Here, all our camels are named after big people. We have camels named Angelina, Shah Rukh, and Madonna. Obama became the president the same year my grandmother bought him. So, he was named Obama. He chuckled. I let out a little chuckle too. But as my throat was dry, I almost choked. Are you okay, madam? Yes, I am fine. Just a little thirsty. I smiled. If you don't mind, you can have some water from me. He proffered his water bottle. I accepted gratefully. The few drops of water, though not refrigerated like I prefer, felt like nectar as they passed down my throat. The driver advised me to splash a little on my face. I obliged and savored this unadulterated form of bliss. Thank you, I returned to him the bottle. And what do they call you? Well, most people call me Obama's driver. But my grandmother calls me Abhay. It means fearless. And what do your parents call you? My father passed away when I was 4. And my mother, well, she ran away 2 weeks after I was born. I stared at him, too stunned to talk. I wanted to hug him and comfort him. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't his fault. I wanted to return him his childhood. His dejected eyes spoke to me and though sad said, "It's okay." We looked at each other for a while till he smiled. If you ever wish to go to Jaisalmer on a camel cart, let me know, madam. It will take you 3 to 4 days to cross the desert, but it's a lot of fun. And you can see the sand dunes too. I nodded, still unable to find the right words to express how bad I felt for him. Abhay halted the cart and got down. He walked up to a rose garden by the side of the road, jumped over the fence and plucked a rose. Here, it's for you, madam. He handed me the flower as he climbed back atop the cart. Thank you, Abhay. It's beautiful. And please, call me Nilima. Another whip on Obama's buttock and the cart moved forward. I looked back to check if Deepak saw any of it. He was busy making love to his camera. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes and meditated on the images of Pushkar. The landscape of the small town, though barren, had a magnetism of its own. Colorful turbans and smiling faces adorned the streets as they reverberated with divine chanting, enchanting gongs and songs. When I finally opened my eyes, I could notice the rocky cliffs surrounding our pathway and the turquoise peacocks loitering on the courtyards. They looked beautiful. The Pushkar festival is a great time to visit this place, Nilima madam. Maybe you should visit us then. I smiled at him, held the rose close to my nostrils and smelled it. The fragrance was intoxicating. And the sun? The sun didn't hurt anymore.